So good to be here. I really enjoyed, I told Samir, I really enjoyed his talk. It was so informative, and he had such good use cases of how they were trying to use AI in their work. And also Mr. Bildiker's talk, because he's a technologist and a serial entrepreneur, so there's definitely some connection between us. And it was so good to see him educate us on AI and sort of cautioning us not to be falling for the hype, but at the same time be vigilant about where we could use it. So enjoyed both of those. And then, of course, the earlier speakers. Unfortunately, I missed Padgaonkar. I was really looking forward to his speech, but I unfortunately missed it. So anyhow, Advait has given me a topic which is approximately like retaining relevance in HR tech world. Now, you got to understand that I work with a company. The name of the company is Harbinger. I helped found the company. It's the world's #1 outsourced HR technology development firm. We have hundreds of engineers working on building software products for HR and learning. We cover the entire life cycle. Like Bildiker said, not just the systems of record, but the hundreds of little things that you need to do on the front end. Right from skilling, certification, credentialing, job portals, applicant tracking, recruiting, onboarding, training, coaching, mentoring, performance management, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, compensation, benefits, right through to outplacement. We have built systems in all these areas for our customers who are basically HR tech companies. We must have built hundreds of HR tech products. So what does all this mean? The conclusion is that I and my company have contributed to creating the problem we have been discussing, right? How to retain relevance in a world of HR. So I almost feel like, imagine a criminal at the Yeroda jail who is on a parole, walking around MG Road, bumps into Kurlekar, and he says, "Would you like to do a keynote? We have a police station inauguration and award ceremony. Come talk about work-life balance." I feel like that. I'm talking to the HR people on solving this problem. But I'll set low expectations and make it a fairly short interaction. Yes, this is not a speech. This is a bit of an interaction. Now, you're all HR people, I'm imagining, but anyway, let's do a show of hands. How many of you are HR people? Okay, so over here in the corner, okay, you are safe. Most of you are HR people, right? So this is a little exercise that you have most likely done, because all HR people do it, but let's do it again, okay? Please do stand up where you are. It'll only take a minute. Just stand up, okay? Very simple. Men, turn to right. Men, turn to your right. Women, turn to your left. Women, turn to your left. Raise your right hand. Not raise, actually. Hold it in front. Don't sort of hit the other person. Maybe hold it like this. Okay? So far, so good? All right. You've done this before, but I'll do it again anyway. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Okay. Now, in your place, just rotate any way you like until your hand, your right hand, is pointing to the north. Until your hand is pointing to the north, and do not open your eyes. You'll spoil the fun. Close your eyes. Keep them closed. Okay? All right, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open your eyes. Just open your eyes. Keep your hand raised and open your eyes. Look around. Which way is the north? It's all over the place, right? All right, sit down. So this is an exercise the HR type of people do. I don't know what it is all about. But I have a follow-on exercise, which is a thought experiment. That's in my area, okay? So the follow-on exercise is, instead of your eyes closed, if your eyes were open, what would you have done differently? And maybe raise your hand and get up and talk so everybody can listen. Suppose your eyes were open, what would you have done differently? Yes, ma'am. You would see what the majority of the people are doing, follow them. Okay, number one. Number two?
I would use the app in the iPhone compass.
You would use the compass app. Okay. Next.
I would stand still.
I would?
I would stand still. This is my north.
Okay, you would just say this is my north. Okay. Anyone else? Wonderful. So the point I'm making is the technology is right there in your pocket, right? You may not even need an app. All you have to do is open Google Maps. Google Maps has a compass. The compass will tell you what the north is. Okay. Now, how long did it take for you to think that I could use Google Maps? That's the test of technology diffusion. The technology is in my pocket. Right here. This is in my pocket. Think of this as HR tech. It's in my pocket. But has it diffused into my mind? To a point where in an exercise like this, I'm thinking, oh, if I could just open one eye and look at my Google Compass, right? If that is occurring to you, you're getting closer and closer to using technology in your work. Suppose your company is about to merge with another company, and the other company is relatively smaller. Okay, it's an acquisition. Your CEO calls you and says, hey, we're going to acquire this company. Everything looks great in finance and customers and synergies and all that. I want you to go check out their culture. What would you do? Glassdoor reviews, very good. Glassdoor, very good. Go ahead. Anyone else?
Interviewing people.
Go and interview people. Yeah. Okay, go and interview people. What else?
Yeah, survey.
Design a survey and administer a survey. Okay, keep going.
Have lunch in the cafeteria, in their cafeteria.
Just go and sit there like a fly on the wall in their cafeteria and watch them. Check out the power distance, figure out the diversity. Try to get a sense of their culture. Right? What else?
Yeah, just spend time with them. Just spend potential time till you understand how things function in that organization.
Okay. And these are all great answers, okay? Yeah. They are all excellent answers, and they are all right answers. Once again, going back to the Google Maps example, if HR technology had seeped deep into your mind, you would say something like, let me use a culture inventory tool, run it on a small group within my company, so I know my baseline culture, my power distance, my diversity, and then go do the same in that company and see whether they are aligned. That would be one way you would think, right? So why does this not happen? We're going to go into that, okay? And that's partially going to answer this question we are here to talk about. But the key thought that I want to focus my little interaction with you on has three components. One is we need to think of reframing the problem that HR solves. Okay? What problem does HR solve? The answer are varied, right? Industrial relations, payroll and compensation and benefits, employee engagement, performance management, career path, acquiring talent. So you start looking at all these things. At an abstract level, is HR, I hope that's not me, okay. At an abstract level, what problem is HR solving could be largely clubbed under administration, glorified as business partner, and then with these nice little bells and whistles around in one worldview. But there could be another worldview, and we'll talk about that. Reframing what HR does, okay? Secondly, retooling yourself with new HR competencies, okay? There were some traditional HR competencies. For example, industrial relations, compliance, and they are very useful competencies. But then there are newer competencies that are needed. I'm going to list them, I'm going to talk about them. And you could take that list home. And the third is re-energizing yourself and adapt and thrive. And this is where technology comes in. So those are the three pieces. We'll start with reframing HR, okay? The traditional view of HR is what we talked about. But in the new view, I can think of two key themes that I would expect from my HR. By the way, my HR leader is Neville Postwala. He heads HR at Harbinger. And yes, that's usually what people say. They think he's Chinese, so they say, woo. Neville, the traditional view gets challenged when you realize that HR is two things that it wasn't traditionally in a knowledge economy. One is HR is a custodian of employee experience. You know, Samir talked a lot about employee experience. HR is the custodian of employee experience, and that includes the company's culture, and that involves all the touch points in an employee's journey, right from encountering the brand on Glassdoor or LinkedIn or Google, all the way up to retiring and joining alumni get-togethers. The entire journey has many little touch points, and it's through those touch points that you experience the company. And that experience is today in nobody's hands. Line managers are busy getting stuff done. Who's going to own that employee experience? It's HR, okay? And this is not very different from customer experience. You know, that you can buy exactly the same furniture as Starbucks and open a coffee shop, and the customer experience would be lousy. Why? Because the touch points are many, right? It's what you smell. It's how the baristas welcome you. It's the ease in which the menus are written out. It's the way in which they repeat it to you. It's the way they serve you. All of that together makes up the experience. So, paying attention to employee experience and being a custodian of employee experience is going to be an increasingly important ask from HR. It's already happening, and I will break it down into specifics for you. The second is HR as a driver of organizational capability, okay? The view of most line managers about capability is, do I have enough people to get this project done or to get this product developed? It's not long term. It's only HR that needs to be looking at long-term organizational capability and aligning it to strategy. If any of you has worked on or studied strategy in business school, strategy boils down to three key components. One of them is positioning. You know, how are you positioned? How, in the customer's mind, okay? Not in your mind, number one. Number two is, what are your competitive dynamics? How are you priced relative to competitor and so on? And number 3, which is foremost, is what are your capabilities? What are your distinguishing, differentiating capabilities that are hard to copy? Okay? And design for capability is not easy, it's far from trivial, and this is an opportunity area for HR. So, this brings us to the question, all this sounds pretty exciting, but how do I do this? Does it even have anything to do with me? Right? So we're going to go right there. I'm going to start with employee experience. But before that, I just want to do a little survey here. And let me phrase this properly, okay? If there was an opportunity, you don't have to work for it. The opportunity is there. And if you ask for it, you will get it. Okay? If there was an opportunity for you to become a CEO, not necessarily of your company, but a company, okay? Would you be excited about taking it? Raise your hands if you would be. Okay? So we have what, 60-70% people who are kind of intrigued and excited. Okay. Do you see even a possibility of that happening? How many of you see a possibility of that happening? A good number, 60%. Okay. Which brings us to the last question, and that is, do you see the path between now and then? How many of you see it? Raise your hands. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 people who can imagine a path between where they are and this place. Okay. So we've all heard of examples like, who's that Chanel CEO? Lena Nair, right? She was a HR leader. And then, of course, Ian Mulcahy, older example, but the Xerox CEO. These are good examples of HR leaders who became CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. The first aspect, which is employee experience, requires a skill called design thinking. How many of you have heard of design thinking? Okay. Is it part of the HR curriculum? Okay, good. Now it's there. I'll give you a simple example. Most people in my company wear a swipe card, and it's held by a lanyard, right? All right. And then everybody's got this harbinger color, which is red. Okay. However, for the first 15 days, the color is different. It changes after 15 days and becomes red. Why is that? Yeah, this is a new person. You know, at least try to be nice to him or her for 2 weeks, if not forever, right? Yeah. So that's an excellent, I mean, very trivial and probably done in many places, but an excellent example of design thinking, because this is a touch point that you are designing, you know, through manipulating the color of the lanyard. We do have these milestone celebrations. Somebody completing 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. We do have a celebration. That celebration ritual has a specific format. And Neville can tell you everything offline about it. But people look forward to it because one aspect of that ceremony is you bring your son, your daughter, your spouse, you know, anybody you like, mother-in-law if you like, and they all show up. And we all sit around and we all talk about this person. Mostly nice things, but sometimes fun things too. And the family just loves it, right? So this ritual is a design. It's designed to celebrate reaching a milestone. It's designed to really appreciate the family that helped this person reach the milestone. I'll give you another example. We are trying to put together a program, and we actually did one edition of it. It's called Teach the CEO. And the way Teach the CEO works is Neville sends out a mail to everybody, all at harbingergroup.com. CEO is ready to learn something new. Okay? Please send your nominations. And then usually, a bunch of people would say, I'd like to teach this, I'd like to teach that, and so on. Okay? So mostly something technical, sometimes a hobby thing or whatever. And they have 1 hour to teach me that. And the way it works is there's this stage. That person is teaching me. Okay? He or she is the teacher, I'm the student. And there's a bunch of people, mostly that person's friends, whom they're trying to influence, I guess, who are sitting in the audience just watching the fun. And hopefully learning from me how to learn, what questions to ask, how to clarify thoughts, how to repeat, how to listen actively. So it's really very well designed. So last time we had a woman from a little town called Sainik Takli. Has anybody heard of Sainik Takli? Yeah? This is Sangli, right? Kolhapur. This little town, everybody, like in every house there's one soldier. So it's called Sainik Takli. And this girl is from Sainik Takli. She's a test engineer. And she was teaching me how to identify, anyway, it had something to do with identifying various types of blood cells in a given sample. And she had done a algorithm around that. It was incredibly fun, listening to her, asking questions and so on. Depending on what values and culture you want to emphasize, do you want to emphasize family? Do you want to emphasize people being friendly? Do you want to emphasize learning? Then these 3 were great rituals. But you may want to emphasize something else, and you can design other rituals for that. That's experience design. Okay? The second part is business strategy. We talked about that. And most important skill that you need for it is critical thinking. Okay? So the business has a reason to want to do something. Okay? Obviously for competitive dynamics reasons, for growth reasons and so on. But then how does that translate into the capability of the organization? And is it even achievable? And can I go back and say that, hey, here are our problems. We need to invest in capability in order to be able to meet these goals. I'll give you a perfect example of that. Anybody knows what ICICI Bank was called before it was ICICI Bank? Exactly, it was called ICICI. Now, Narayan Vagul and KV Kamath, sometime around the turn of the century, came along and said, we want to become a bank. Now, earlier they were all B2B. They were extending these huge loans and recovering them, or maybe not recovering them. And then they suddenly wanted to become a universal bank with ATMs and mobile phones and what have you, right? Imagine the transition needed to go from B2B to B2C in their employees. Imagine the transformation of touch points. In the old days, the touch point was like, okay, you need a loan, get this paper, get that paper. Now the touch point is like, please come take a loan, right? A total change of behaviors. I haven't met all the HR people at ICICI, but I had the good fortune to have interaction with Ram Kumar Krishnaswamy, who was their, not only their HR head, but he eventually became their executive director, joined the board, and also became chairman of their non-profit foundation and so on. Amazing person. And he launched a dozen different innovations, contactless payment, and I don't know, I lose track of all these things these banks do. But think about it, he was an HR person hired for an HR role and found his organization suddenly in the middle of this transformation And he knew there was opportunity for innovation. So any one of you that has learned strategy knows that eventually when the strategy leaves the boardroom, it goes through a balanced scorecard, which means it flows through finance and then customers and then processes, and finally it lands in people, capabilities, and innovation, right? And that's where this fraternity is, right? You are the wicket keepers, correct? And you need to do what you can do best, which is why in Harbinger, the top 2.5%, which is a real tiny amount of employees, go to an annual management meet, but our HR head is part of that. He has to be there with us, and very actively. There is an additional note I want to make here, which is about quantitative skills. It's important. How many of you got into HR because you hated mathematics? Okay. So I appreciate the candor, but but I have to say that the data is here, and you have to be ready to design surveys, to design qualitative studies. I'll give you a simple example. In Google, around the turn of the decade, a bunch of technical engineers, and there was something like 40,000 at that time, complained that managers are micromanaging, they hate it. Okay? Now, when you have something like this, you cannot just go anecdotally because somebody is complaining. They brought in a people analytics specialist who designed a sophisticated quantitative study called Project Oxygen. And you can Google Project Oxygen and see what they found. One of the key findings they had was engineers hate to be micromanaged technically, but they love to be paid close attention when it comes to their careers. So they want that micromanagement when it comes to do this, do that, this is how you will advance, but not when it comes to technical work. This level of nuance is expected from each one of you. Not just say people don't like micromanaging. And to do this, you will need to design surveys and quantitative studies that would actually prove this. So this is something that we need. I come to the last part, which is re-energizing yourself. There are many different ways in which you could go from here, right? You could have many different career paths. Ultimately, those who adapt can thrive. And what happens is, in every organization, there are these half-open doors. As you're walking, there's a door which is half open. But you kind of look at it and then you keep walking. Then there is another half-open door here. You look at it and you keep walking. We don't bother to push those door opens, go inside and see what's going on, and there may be an opportunity for you there. I'll give you examples of such half-open doors. Corporate communication. How many of you participate in corporate communication? That's a half-open door. Another one, company branding. How many of you are involved in company branding? Working closely with marketing. Okay, very good. Customers. How many of you present to customers? Okay, so your leadership doesn't call you to present to customers what the supply chain looks like, where the talent comes from, what the culture is like. That's a big lacuna, right? I mean, the customers are ultimately buying knowledge work, and they want to know who these workers are, and only HR can present that. Okay, how many of you get involved in restructuring, organizational redesign? A handful. Okay, good. Finally, how many of you are called in meetings that seem to be business strategy meetings? Okay, so we have some very good example of the type of half-open doors that some of you seem to have pushed open, and the rest of you can try to push open. I don't want to believe it, but some people think that HR has a low self-image. I don't know where that comes from. At least when I look at Neville, I don't feel that way, right? So in fact, we may have the other problem. How will you go about? I think you will need to use technology to grow in that direction and push those half open doors. And the best way I know of making that happen is this. Give yourself an hour every week. Every week, give yourself an hour to re-energize yourself. Stop your regular work. Spend a few minutes looking at new things. Where can I use ChatGPT? How can I use pivots in Excel? How can I create a compelling data visualization? How can I design a good survey? What new HR and learning tools are on the market? What courses can I take online? How can I create an Instagram presence for the brand that I work for? How can I create a community online? Just raise your head and look around. Nobody is paying you for do this, but do it for yourself. That 1 hour will elevate your entire work to a new level and re-energize you. If you do this week after week after week after week, you would have started practicing non-stop renewal. And I love that phrase, non-stop renewal. Anybody who is in a software as a service subscription business loves this, non-stop renewal. Just renew our subscription, don't stop, right? This is renewing yourself. Okay. And then technology will not scare you anymore. Because anything, like somebody comes along, for example, Akanksha said, I think, eightfold.ai. Don't get scared, just write it there. When I have that 1 hour, I'm going to go to eightfold.ai and see what the heck it is, right? Mercer, okay, I'll go see what that is. Just keep doing that. So my parting thought is for two constituencies. The first is CEOs and leaders. I want to say something to them. And then I want to say to all of us here. For the CEOs, I want to just share that, HR is a critical function. They screw up, you can go behind bars. I mean, I understand all of that. But don't just treat them as people who should not make mistakes. That's the admin view of people, right? Don't limit them to this machine that should not make mistakes. Think of them as people who can drive capability, have an impact on employee experience, generate insights, and if they make a mistake, okay, admonish them for the mistake, and the next breath you should be able to say, but tell me, where am I going wrong in my organization design? What am I doing wrong in my strategy? Treat them with the respect they deserve for the other part as well. Okay? Second is my thought for the HR leaders, and that is that you need a new perspective for what HR is, a new perspective for what technology diffusion looks like, a new perspective for really the world around you. So I found this beautiful sher in Urdu that I'd like to recite before I go. And how many of you know the meaning of the word Jadid? Jadeed. Jadid. No, not Shiddat, not that either. Okay, so Jadid, the best way to understand Jadid is new. But then the nuance is something that has become new as a result of renewal. So perhaps the best translation for Jadid is modernized. Okay, Jadid, modern. Okay, now you can follow it. Okay, and unfortunately I don't know the Shire. It's actually, I found it in a ghazal that Ghulam Ali has sung. पढ़े लिखों से भी चेहरे पढ़े नहीं जाते. पढ़े लिखों से भी चेहरे पढ़े नहीं जाते. जदीद शहर है लेकिन नजर पुरानी है. So it's not enough to do these courses on design thinking and so on Udemy, but you also need to read what's going on. Yeah? Thank you so much. You've been very patient. Thank you.